And so I think that is what's really important when it comes to intentional travel and bringing in culture into it, because it's good for everybody. Everybody
Yeah.
wins when you can
Yeah.
go on a trip and really just fully embrace someone's culture. It also gives you permission to embrace your own culture and, again, not try to hide it. So I just think there's so many benefits to getting to a place and not just staying in the hotel, not just doing something that you could do at home, but really embracing and truly integrating culture. And we do that a lot of different ways depending on where you're going. The first thing is always a crash course of the language that's being spoken, because the
Yeah.
type of connection and smiles and feeling of welcome that you'll get just by trying to say
Hmm.
hello in the local language and
Hmm.
thank you, just those
Hmm.
two words. If those were the only thing you needed to do to be proficient in a language, I would speak about 30 languages, because that's how important it is to know at
Yeah.
least hello and thank you. And that's
Yeah.
one way, just to simply try to embrace culture. But there's
And to
so many,
connect, right? To
and to
make those
connect, because that's the most important
connections.
part.
Yeah. Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Today we are joined by a truly inspiring guest, Ashley Company, a visionary entrepreneur who turned her passion for travel and cultural connection into a transformative career. I think we have a theme going here over these past couple of episodes, but I love travel and I love how this really fit together. Ashley made a bold leap from a corporate position at a Fortune 50 company to master a foreign language and explore the globe, visiting over 100 countries. Her adventures led her to found the acclaimed organizations Jelani Travel and Jelani Gives, where she has spent the last decade curating cultural immersion and service trips across Africa and beyond, fostering cultural understanding and making significant social impacts. A keynote speaker and a recognized figure on the Forbes Next 1000 list, Ashley's talks cover a wide array of topics, from the power of solo travel and women's roles in entrepreneurship to the profound effects of cultural identity and social impact. Today, we will dive into how travel has shaped Ashley into the woman she is today. We'll explore her commitment to fostering cultural understanding and discuss what it means to travel intentionally, embedding oneself deeply into the cultures of the countries she and her clients visit. We'll also celebrate her accolade on the Forbes Next 1000 list and learn how she integrates her values into unforgettable travel experiences for her clients. Let's meet Ashley Company. Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio, Ashley. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Cami. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you. I love travel. It's really interesting. I was just mentioning to you, I've got this theme going. The last episode of Extraordinary Women Radio had a travel theme to it as well. And I'm like, how perfect. And I love that we get to talk about travel even more today. And your angle on travel and all the good work that you're doing in the world, which is super cool. So anyway, it's fun to have you here. And where are you joining us from today?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, cool. Very, very cool. And you have traveled to over 100 countries around the world. Like, wow, that's really impressive. That's really, really impressive. How did this all translate into you? How did your travel translate into you doing the work that you just truly love?
I really didn't expect to work in travel. I've always loved travel. I got bit by the travel bug, as many would say, at the early age of 7.
Oh my
My
gosh.
my grandparents were in the Air Force and they were stationed in Adana, Turkey. And so at 7 years old in the summer, I'm making my way to Turkey. And then as early as 12, my mom was also in the military and she got stationed in South Korea. So I actually lived there for 8 months.
Wow.
And so I
Wow.
just remember from young age always just being so awe-inspired by just culture and people, their way of life and the food and the sounds. There's just so many things that brings me back to childhood memories when I visit places that are similar or from the same cultures. And so it's always kind of just been ingrained in me. But once I graduated from Hampton University, I did a college to corporate hire program at Pepsi. And it was while I was at Pepsi when I got my first paycheck and I could actually pay for a real vacation that I took advantage of that paid time off and said, I'm out of here. And that first vacation actually turned into a solo vacation. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be. It was my 25th birthday. My two best friends were supposed to come. They had legitimate, very good reasons not to join. One had a clerkship with the judge. Like, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't be mad, but it still left me by myself. And at that moment, I just had to really ask myself, like, are you just going to stay and not go anywhere to celebrate this milestone birthday? Or are you going to face your fears and just try to make the most of it and just go out there and travel by yourself and see what happens?
And where did you go?
Actually went to Dominican Republic.
Uh-huh.
And my plan, my strategy that I had for myself was to take a crash course in Spanish and to only stay on the resort so that at least I felt more secure. And then as I got closer to the trip dates, I was like, I'll do one tour because the resort is going to organize it and I'll be with other people on the resort. And I felt comfortable with that, but I wouldn't otherwise leave the resort. None of that happened. Once I got there, and I met the local people on the beach and in the markets, and trying to communicate with them and learning. Some of them taught me salsa. That's literally where I found my love for salsa dancing,
Mm-hmm.
bachata dancing. I came back from that trip fully ingrained in learning Spanish, started learning it for a year after that moment. Like, so many things changed where I was just like, I love the people here. They were so nice. And I had such a good experience. And I just kept thinking, I want to see more countries in this region. And I want to make sure I can talk to these people when I get there. So I just started teaching myself Spanish. And it just was truly a transformational experience. I'm so glad I didn't let fear stop me and I traveled by
Oh,
myself.
that's right. And it's such a good lesson, right? It's like you could have just stepped back and said, this feels really uncomfortable and I'm just not going to go.
I almost
And,
did.
and yeah, and you think about how your life has the trajectory of your life because you did make that bold decision.
Yeah.
So important. What a great lesson.
I mean, it actually got even bolder because within a year of learning the language, I also realized I was going to leave the company because I had gotten at that point 4 years of work experience. I thought that I would go to business school at that point with that good leadership experience from a Fortune 50 company. And I said, but I'm going to take a year to travel in those places. I've been learning the language. I fell in love with the culture and learning the dancing, and I want to go experience it more. And as we know, in the US, we don't get a lot of PTO. That's not something that's
Right.
ingrained
Yeah.
in our culture here. So I was like, let me take the most advantage of this break before I go back to school. And that year of backpacking, solo backpacking through all of Central America, all of South
Wow.
America, and then finally in Kenya, changed my life forever. So it really all started all the
Wow.
way back from being young and making that decision to travel solo, but it extended because that year of transformational travel is what led me to create the company that I have today, 10 years later.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I want to just touch base on the solo travel piece of it because um, I think that especially when you're going and you're really entrenching yourself into a culture that that's new. Um, Talk a little bit about that. How that shaped you into the woman that you are.
Yeah, I think traveling and experiencing a new culture definitely shapes me. Even from a young age, I think I grew empathy when I was in Turkey and I would see young children in front of me at a traffic stop, taking watermelons off the back of the truck and trying to figure out why they were doing that. And my grandparents explaining to me they're hungry. That's what they need. They're not just trying to be mischievous. They're looking for something to eat. And it just made me see the world differently.
Right.
And then living in Korea, most of the military soldiers lived on the base with their families, but we lived on the economy in local traditional Korean houses, and we had Korean neighbors, and we ate on the floor like they did traditionally,
Yeah.
and it just opened my eyes to the world around me, that everybody's not the same and that we should celebrate our differences. So I think it really helped me become a more well-rounded person. I'm able to adapt into any environment.
Yeah.
And then as I grew into an adult and actually had opportunities to travel on my own, I think it really shifted. You probably could imagine one of my motivations for wanting to learn Spanish was not just because of the culture, but I also met someone that I thought I was in love with at the time. So, travel even opens you up for love and just all kind of different things. So I really get to ask myself, who am I? And just learning more about who I am and trusting myself and just experiencing new things through travel. It's been a total blessing that I always encourage people to do. It's more than just, a resort or just laying down at the beach, like the
Yeah.
quintessential image of travel.
Yeah.
It's so much more
Yeah.
than that. Your
It's so
life
much
can
more.
change. You
I
learn so much. So
exactly. I love the experiences that I've had when I've been traveling in different countries around the globe, and the language stories. And I think you've touched on, it's like trying to communicate with somebody who doesn't really speak the same language, but you still figure out ways to do that. Um, and, just getting around and, the problem solving and figuring things out. It's just so many wonderful things to really experience. And I think you hit on it too, on like going to the markets and the colors and the smells and everything is so very different, and just really living in those cultures. And I think you've talked about, being deeply rooted into the country. Well, before we go there, because I think I do want to go there. I want to talk about being, really getting deeply rooted into the country. But tell us how, from all these experiences, you actually started a company. How did that vision come about? And how did that unfold for you, so that you get to do this as part of your work?
yeah, it just really just hit me out of nowhere. People were starting to travel, to follow my travels as I was moving along. And I wasn't even on social media like Instagram or anything or YouTube. I was just on my regular Facebook account. Friends who just, back then,
They were admiring what you were
social media,
doing.
yeah, just asking me like, where are you going next? And I would share, but I wasn't trying to do it professionally or blog or any of those things. And one day I woke up and I was just like, I've taken this year-long journey. I've had so many aha moments. I've learned so much for myself, and it felt like such a transformation that I wanted to have more people experience it, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know how I could help them. I didn't feel like I was qualified to help them do what I've done. And but I asked. I just put I just threw a post out there, and I was like, to my friends, if anybody, people keep saying I want to travel with you, but they never did. I was like, if I put something together for us, who would show up? Not only did I get an overwhelming response, but I had friends who actually knew me send money to my account without me even being able to, like $100 or $50, without me even being able to tell them how much it cost, where we were going, when we were going. I didn't have any information yet, but they were like, I just want my spot. I'm serious. I want to go. And that type of feedback from the market really showed me, okay, maybe I have something here. I should probably create something. And so I did. And I took them to Trinidad and Tobago,
Mm-hmm.
and they had such a really good time. And every year for the last 10 plus years, I've just grown from the backpacking lifestyle, which was like that first trip was like, because that's where I was, to
Mm-hmm.
now full luxury, full service concierge experiences for people. And now we even focus on more custom trips instead of just group trips for private organizations that want to go privately, or families, honeymooners, whatever it is. I really love doing retreats for like corporate wellness or entrepreneurs, any themed opportunities where people who are of the like mind can come together and intentionally get to the next level of whatever they're trying to do with the backdrop of travel, because travel can really do that for
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, just I'm thinking of the corporate world taking teams. What a great team building experience that could be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially on our safaris. That's a really good opportunity for team building, fireside chats around the fire pit with the Maasai warriors, kind of
Oh, wow.
welcoming you in, and getting up early in the morning and doing the safari game drives with your team in the safari vehicle is nothing like it. And the
Yeah.
experience, the laughs, the connections, the memories, but also the conversations that come out of just being in the middle of nature in such a luxurious experience. It's bound to create good ideas and promote productivity.
Cool. That's so cool. And when you're setting up these trips, are you very focused on regions around the world, or are you just pretty open to where people want to go?
That's a great question. So I actually, even though I started my big travel journey within Central and South America, the last
Hmm.
part of that year, I went to Kenya, and Kenya was truly the most transformational experience that made me say, "Oh, okay, I have to create something." It was the whole year was just so wonderful and beautiful. Even though I had, of course, crazy experiences, it was all worth it everywhere that I went. But it was like good for me. Once I went to Kenya, it was so good that I was like, I can't keep this to myself. I don't know anything about business yet, but I have to create something for more people to get here. Kenya was really, really special. And so I was just like, okay, if we're going to be, I'm going to be bringing people to Kenya, let me work on that. I had some connections in Trinidad and Tobago. So I went there first for comfort. I also went to Ghana because I had connections. And then finally I brought people to Kenya. And so I pretty much spent the first 5, 6, I would say the first 5 to 7 years focused on Africa travel.
Uh-huh,
And so
uh-huh.
most people know me as an expert on Africa travel. Usually when they want to go anywhere in Africa, that's the region they come to. But since the pandemic, we expanded to some places in Central America, a few places in Asia. So those are primarily
Cool.
where I would
Cool,
go.
cool. So when I want to go to Africa, I know who to call.
I'm
That's
your
one.
girl.
Yeah. That's one continent that I haven't actually been to, and so I
Oh
would love
yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah.
I would love to get there.
It's
Um,
incredible. 54 countries,
mhm.
so much diversity.
Yeah.
So many things to experience.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I love how it unfolded very organically, and just how it very once you put it out there, it's like people just said yes and started coming. And so that's really, where your business, it grew from, that those seeds of putting those out there. So I love stories like that. And I know, let's go back to this. I know your trips are really deeply rooted in the country's culture. So
Hmm.
tell us a little bit how you're incorporating. You've given us some examples already of how you're incorporating culture into your trips, but I think that's a really important part, is how can you just really be in the true culture of a country versus being in a hotel or someplace that just is, there's not the same kind of experience. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that culture is really important. We even talk about it in the workplace. In corporate America, we talk about corporate culture, how the culture is on this team. And I think it's equally important when we think about, corporate wellness, that we also think about, and we think about mental wellness, we think about physical wellness, but I think a part of that mental wellness is our cultural wellness. So, especially for people of color in the workplace, a lot of times they have different obstacles to face. Like we all have the jobs that we're hired to do, but a lot of us will face like microaggressions or things that can wear us down mentally. And I think that if we hone in on our cultural wellness, like we travel to places and see how rich the culture is and just become more proud of what we're connected to, especially if you're traveling into Africa and you're a person of African descent, or even Asia, all of those things you see, you get just like a positive reinforcement of why you're here and what you're connected to. And I think you can go back to work feeling more confident
Yeah.
and just proud to be your authentic self. And I think that's for everyone, to show up authentically in the workplace. It's exhausting to otherwise not do that. And so you're
Yeah.
not as, you don't perform as well when you're too busy trying to, mask who you really are and change who you are. And so I think that is what's really important when it comes to intentional travel and bringing in culture into it, because it's good for everybody. Everybody
Yeah.
wins when you can
Yeah.
go on a trip and really just fully embrace someone's culture. It also gives you permission to embrace your own culture and again, not try to hide it. So I just think there's so many benefits to getting to a place and not just staying in the hotel, not just doing something that you could do at home, but really embracing and truly integrating culture. And we do that a lot of different ways, depending on where you're going. The first thing is always a crash course of the language that's being spoken, because the
Yeah.
type of connection and smiles and feeling of welcome that you'll get just by trying to say hello in the local language and thank you, just those two words. If those were the only thing you needed to do to be proficient in a language, I would speak about 30 languages, because that's how important it is to know at
Yeah.
least hello and thank you. And that's
Yeah.
one way just to simply try to embrace culture. But there's
And to
so many,
connect, right? To
and to
make those
connect, because that's the most important
connections.
part.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when you connect, you might meet somebody who was from that culture in your workplace that, as a manager or a direct report, you can build more of a relationship with, because you have something in common, or you're able to show appreciation for that person's culture because you've experienced it, you've embraced it, and you feel more connected to it.
Yeah, so cool. One of my favorite travel stories of mine is being in Tibet, and we were at a monastery and just kind of wandering around to different buildings, and there was a door that was locked. And so we went to it, and we tried to open it, it was locked. And so we're like walking away, and this monk came up to us and said, "Come in, come in." And, he didn't speak a word of English, and we didn't speak a word of Tibetan. And, other than the, hello and, thank you, those kind of things. But it was, so he unlocks the door and he takes us into this room, and it had these murals on the walls. And so he was like telling the stories in Tibetan of what these murals stood for. And so you could, because of the pictures, you could start to understand what the stories were that he was telling. It was so magical. And then we got to a wall, and there was actually bullet holes on the walls. And he kind of got teary eyed at that point, and he kind of indicated that he was small. He was small when that happened, and he was a small boy. And it was when the Chinese came in and were invading Tibet, and it had ruined this wall. But he told us this whole series of stories for probably, I don't know, 30 minutes or more. And it was so magical. And there was like, the language barrier was there, but we understood, and we walked out of there, we were like, I think I understood everything he told us. And it was just so magical. It's one of my favorite stories of being able to connect with somebody at such a deep level, despite the language barriers, and just be deeply entrenched into that culture.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I was just posted the other day about the language of laughter. When you
Uh-huh.
don't speak each other's language, but you're able to connect with laughter and smiles, that's also really special, because it might just be a fleeting moment passing by, maybe a few minutes where you're not able to connect as deeply and beautifully as you were able to, but to have that moment where it's like, I see you, and the other person
Yeah.
is like, I see you too,
Yeah.
because we're laughing and we're smiling. There's joy, but then there's the connection that
Yeah.
whatever it was, we saw it and we got it together without having to speak the
Yeah.
same language.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. I have another story in Italy where we were lost, and we were trying to find directions, and there was a little farmer on the side of the road, and I got out of the car, and we like did all the sign language and all the stuff, and got back in the car, and I was like, I think I know where we need to go. It's like you can find these ways to connect through laughter and smile and signaling and all the things. It's so
Mhm.
beautiful. I love travel. Obviously, I totally love
I
travel.
know. I can
That's why I
feel it.
was,
It's like
yeah, and that's why I was excited to talk to you. So I know that one of the things that when you're building your trips, you talk about being intentional. What does that mean? Intentional travel.
So, I mean, the evolution of my business has changed. The mission has always stayed the same, but what people are looking for and who are coming to me, what they're looking for has changed a bit. And so
Mm-hmm.
we primarily focus on custom trips that are private for organizations. And so it's organizations or groups or families, whoever it is, but it's a private trip. And in those retreats or vacation experiences, I consult them based on my vast knowledge of having travel experience of over 100 countries and all the different types of ways that I've traveled, to see what their vision is and to make sure that it comes to light, but that also they leave even better than they came. So the intention is to meet them with what they're looking for. So they might have some specific objectives that they want as a group, but then also I'm also as a coach, I'm listening for what's not being said
Yeah.
around, maybe they're having issues with identity, or maybe they're having issues with what's happening at work or in their home life, and they need to get away, or it's a family situation. Whatever it is, we're taking that and we're adding in some intentional activities or exercises or just ways to think about things and framing what they're experiencing so that they experience the most out of it. So it could
Mhm.
be even just as an example, when you go to Ghana, a famous thing to do is to go to the Cape Coast slave dungeons, where there's castles on top and churches and schools, and all this is on top of where enslaved Africans were held.
Mhm.
Most people, when they travel, just as a bottom baseline, want to go to the historic places to just check out what the iconic historic place is in that destination. So most people will just go there no matter what their reason is. But when I have um, a church organization or a family who are African Americans or people of African descent, and they go, the intention behind it is to make sure that the intention behind it is not just to check the mark of going to that historic landmark. That's going to be a great experience and beautiful place to take pictures and to say you've been there, but to also frame what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
And so our guides, our staff, everybody is framing it in a way to make sure it's special for them. So they might wear all white in reverence to the passing of their ancestors. They may want some ceremonial things that we can put in place if that's something that they want to do. So we are intentional about not just coming and going, because you can come, get the
Yeah.
history and go, but you can also go much deeper.
Yeah.
And I like to take to account that there are resorts on the beach. And so some people might just go there, have the experience, and go back to the main city of Accra. But I will have you stay there and the next day be a free day, because it can be a lot more mentally taxing for you to be a part of that lineage where such atrocities happen, that you might
Yeah.
need to take a day to just reflect. And we
Mhm.
wouldn't just say beach day, we would say beach day and reflection. So it's at the top of your mind to frame, like,
Right.
this is what I want to do with my time.
Yeah.
So there's things like that where we just really
Yeah.
take it to the next level to make sure what you're trying to get out of it, you get, and then some.
That's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And because, we can just show up in places and just experience the surface, but what you're helping them do is really experience it from a deeper level. And I love that. I really, really love that. Um, let's see, where else would I want to? So, I mean, you're just building such. Is there anything else? I mean, what are you building next within your work?
I would say what's next for us is actually trying to work with corporations more, because I think
Mhm.
it's really important for their leadership teams to have really intentional experiences, because I think it can really support a lot of, especially in the DEI space and with the government, things are changing or going away or looking differently. And I think it's important for everybody in the workspace to move ahead with their business goals. Part of it is the person. That person still
Yeah,
needs to be whole, and their
totally.
wellness is so
Yeah.
important. And so leadership teams by departments or by just different groups, whatever it is, to really make sure that they feel cohesive
Hmm.
and aligned with one another as the person, and not just the title that's on the paper. And so
Yeah.
having travel just finds a way to put you in a space where you don't really have any choice but to connect, but to
Yeah.
do it in a way that really builds them up. And so with that, that's really what's next. And on our website, you would see different locations for group offerings, but the majority of our leads and contacts that come in and the requests that comes in are for custom trips. So I think what's next is that the public will be able to see an opportunity to have leadership retreats and retreats for entrepreneurs and corporate leadership retreats. That's public. So we do it already because it's kind of, my business has always grown the way that it started, where I just ask a question and then all these people are like, hey, we want to come on a group. And now it's been an overwhelming response of, hey, I'm the CHRO for this bank, and we need my leadership team to do this retreat. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
okay. So putting it out there more so that more people know that that's
Yeah.
available to them.
I love it. And you've been listed on the Forbes Next 1000 list. Like, first of all, wow, and congratulations.
Thank you
How
so
was
much.
that to receive?
That was amazing. It
It
was,
should be.
yeah, it was an incredible honor because I had to get nominated, and then there was a process. And so finding out that, you know, we were a part of that list really meant a lot, because when they interviewed me, they really wanted to know about how I was able. So what I think was something that put me over, what they were interested in, is how I was able to overcome as a travel business the pandemic when everything had stopped. And for us,
Yeah.
it didn't just stop. We went into the negative because we recognize, again, the whole person. It's not just a client. This is a person who has a home life, has a job. And so even though our policy was non-refundable, you know, we wanted to do what was right by people. And so we sent money back because we knew people were losing their jobs. People didn't know how they were going to feed their families. Nobody saw this coming. So not only did we lose money on side of, you know, with the vendors that we had already paid, but we still wanted to make sure that the people who had trusted us to travel with us would be able to, you know, feed their families and do whatever they needed to do with that such an unexpected like stop of everything. And our
Right.
hope was that when we could travel again, they would remember that, they would appreciate that, and they would come back to us. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened, and it happened tenfold. So
That's
I
amazing.
think, yeah, I think that was
You
that
trusted
for
in the good faith, and then the good faith came back to,
it did.
because
And
people
then
came
when I
back to
shared
you.
that with them, I think that's what Forbes got really excited about, because they their angle that they were focusing on at that time, I was in the on the inaugural list. I don't know if it's changed since, but it was how American companies have grown but also survived during the pandemic, and how we did it. And I believe, I know that's how we did it. We have testimonial accounts of people saying, I appreciated that so much that it wasn't, I was just coming on your group trip for just myself, but now I'm in a position, I'm bringing my whole family. And, you know, it reflected in the numbers as well. So we're really grateful for the trust and the faith in our company, even when times were hard. We reciprocated that, and we've grown as a result.
I love that. That's such a beautiful story. Okay, so where can people learn more about you, connect with you, and where can they learn more about your company?
Yes.
And tell
So
us your, because I don't think we've even said your company name.
oh, Actually, I'm wearing a shirt. Let's see. Jelani
Jelani
Travel.
Travel. There we go.
Curator for the culture.
Jelani. Yeah, Jelani Travel. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So you can, I'm very active on Instagram. My Instagram is Ashley in company underscore. And then also all things, all social media, Jelani Travel, JELANI travel. And then our website is gojelanitravel.com.
Excellent. Excellent. And then the final question I always close with are, what are 3 pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave with us today?
3 pearls of wisdom. Okay. I would say, kind of in the theme of what we started out talking about with solo travel, even if it's not by yourself, travel is so important. I think travel is truly a life hack, both personally
Yeah.
and professionally, because there's so much that you gain from it. It's
Yeah.
literally a classroom. So I would definitely say travel is a life hack. Remembering that and embracing
Yeah.
that is one pearl. Another pearl would be, you know, it's always nice to go with people. There's pros and cons to traveling solo or not. But if you are one who is waiting and has been waiting because you're waiting for that friend to finally be ready or your partner to finally be ready, I highly recommend you just go. You can start small. It doesn't have to be an international journey. It can be a weekend getaway, a road trip, a staycation. But to do something for yourself, to just leave and get out there and test your limits, see what your resourcefulness can look like. Um, you know, you just don't want to miss that opportunity. So I would say just go. You
Yeah.
shouldn't wait. Certainly don't wait too long, because
Yeah.
life is now. I think that's the third one. I would say life is now, because I think life, I would say life is a travel hack, because it can apply to so many areas of your life. And so when I say life is now, I just mean that life is too short in order to have regrets and not go do the thing you've always wanted to do. So for me, it's like the next place, the next experience, I want to have that, but it doesn't have to be travel. Life is now, whatever it is that you're wanting to do, whether it's start a business or get to the next point in your career or just try a new hobby. Like, don't be afraid to just start because life is now.
Oh, so good. So much wisdom that you're bringing to us today, Ashley. Thank you so much. I have to thank my dear friend Phoenix for introducing us. And thank you for sharing all your good wisdom today.
Thank you so much for having me.